Hey everybody, it's Jang here from Ultimate RC and the forums at ultimaterc.com with my closing thoughts on the Traxxas Nitro Slash. Now, the following is all my opinion, and not everybody's going to like it, but nobody's going to change it, so don't bother trying. A vehicle like this is not for everybody. If you are strictly an electric fan and you hate nitros, then do both of us a favor, close this video right now, never look at it again. I don't want to hear what you have to say. I don't care what you have to say. This vehicle is not for you, that's for sure. And it's not going to be for all nitro fans either. Let's see, summing things up. I just want to, I've already given driving videos and kind of shown how it performs, and you can see for yourself how it performs from those. I started with it in pretty much box stock condition, and then I made one change on it, changed out, well, took two changes actually, in order to put on different tires on the rear, just to try to get a little more traction out of it. Box stock comes with these tires. Actually, these are the original rears, these are the original fronts. The original fronts are the BF Goodrich treads in their standard compound, which is kind of hard, and this is not a good compound, and it's not a good tread for general use in my opinion. However, they don't put the standard tread on this vehicle, the standard rubber compound rather, on this vehicle on the rear by default. They give you the S1 compound, which is extra soft. So normally out of the box, soft compound on the rear, super hard compound on the front. That actually does an interesting thing. Normally a vehicle, keep in mind this is powered by the Traxxas 3.3 engine. It is powerful. It has a lot of horsepower for its displacement and for its weight. And it's all going to just the rear two tires. And I would have expected this thing to get absolutely no traction even with the S1 compound tires, because these tires in general are terrible. And yes, I am going to talk a lot about tires here because it's really an important topic, especially for this vehicle, more so than with most other vehicles. I was actually pleasantly surprised. I was able to drive this thing with the stock tires, so I kind of had to eat my words there. Not sure if the words ever came out, but if they did come out at some point, maybe just in my mind, still have to eat them internally. I was able to drive this thing pretty much right out of the box. I think I might have adjusted the ride height a little bit just to get the balance right. Did a normal break-in process for the engine. Took plenty of tanks to go through that. I think, I don't know, 5 tanks or something like that. I generally take plenty of time to give engines a nice good break-in. And when the power started coming up, like I said, I was able to actually drive the thing. However, I did have to drive it very easy on the throttle. And on any surface that had any kind of loose layer on it at all, getting up to the high end of the range needed to be going straight in order to keep it going straight when it really got into its RPM range. Now the interesting thing with the Narstay. Now the interesting thing with the tires is with these really hard compound tires on the front and with the stock steering servo not being too fast, it actually had a fair amount of push built in, so it would not have the traction that it really needed up front, which caused it to want to understeer from the front even when it wanted to oversteer from the rear, from having the same tread pattern even though it was the softer. So this thing kind of would transition between understeer and oversteer, but you could manage it. You could see when it was going to transition from one to the other, and you really just had to keep the power modulated carefully to kind of ride that ridge between the two. I'm going to still talk about it in its stock form. Now it does use AA batteries in the receiver pack by default, and you're only going to fit 4 in that space, so you'll want to be using alkalines in order to get the full voltage out of it. You can run nickel metal hydrides. I do not recommend it. If you want to run nickel metal hydrides, get yourself a 5-cell nickel metal hydride receiver pack, and that's going to give you a proper 6-volt nominal voltage for the system, and everything should work out pretty well. Now, like I said, the servo, it's actually the exact same servo used for steering and for the throttle and brake. It's a little bit on the sluggish side. It's not too terrible. You know, for RTR stuff, I think it's okay. The engine tuned up quite easily. I didn't ever have any problems with it. The worst thing about this engine is that it was tuned a little bit lean on the low end, and it's a little bit of a pain. You have to do some disassembly to get to the low speed needle on this the way that it's arranged right now. So I never ended up changing that. So I never got a perfect tune out of this, but I got especially down at the bottom of the range. But as long as you kept it in the RPMs, it was going good. Your mileage will vary on that for sure. The thing has a ton of power, and once you're on a surface that allows you to put that power down, or if you're able to swap out tires for something that has a lot more traction. For instance, I used some stadium truck wheels and tires here, stuff that should be on the Nitro Rustler. You know, the wider stuff, not short course fare, that required changing out the hubs. I actually put electric slash hubs, the hub carriers themselves, on the rear, and that allowed me to directly run these electric Rustler specific J-Concepts wheels, and I've got some J-Concepts tires on there just because it happened to be what I had available, and these are pretty hard compound and outdoor long-lasting endurance compound. That helped with the traction quite a lot and made it a lot easier to drive this thing around. You'll notice that I'm still running the stock springs on this, and the progressive springs are actually working okay on this on the rear, because by default, where the weight ends up settling, your small coils here, the short ones that are closer together, are compressed all the way, which is exactly what I like to see. They only start to open up when the suspension drops, when the vehicle is in the air. And once you get down to here, that stiffens it up, so that's a good thing. Still could use some suspension tuning, definitely, but again, just the stock fare was good enough. What else? Let's see. Like I said, I put about a half a gallon through this thing. Biggest problem really that I had with the darn thing was I did have one breakage, but it was something that's pretty, it was a decently hard hit. I really don't fault this for that. Screw pins, Traxxas standard fare. Screw pins tend to come out pretty easily, and it's one of those things where you have to get used to which side likes to come out, and then you want to thread that side in from the opposite end so that it will naturally tighten itself rather than loosening itself. So this one came out again. Haven't swapped it around yet, but it is a little bit of a pain to put this in compared to the electric ones. With the electric ones, just put a screwdriver right up there, maybe put a little bit of CA glue on there, you can patch it up real quick. With this one, you do need to drop off the entire A-arm mount, but that's a good thing in that the A-arm mounts are separate compared to the electric ones where they're not. 2 screws pops that all off. There's actually a wedge under there for anti-squat, and you can adjust your anti-squat. It has a fair amount in there right now, but you can increase that if you want. And it's not too bad. This thing does have a fair amount of adjustability on it right out of the box. It does have the adjustable camera length with different mounts at the inside bulkhead here. At the front, you do not have that option, but you can change your front toe and your rear roll center a little bit, your camber. Caster can be changed by changing out the caster blocks themselves, but that's something that you have to pay for separately. The thing is basically a stretched Nitro Rustler and kind of drives like one, except for the body, which changes how it acts a fair amount by virtue of the fact that it's a parachute. Even though they do give you all these cutouts, comes like that from the factory. That's a good thing. Generally good for reducing parachuting, but on a nitro vehicle, it's important for evacuating hot air. So I did not have problems with heat on this engine. Fortunately, just had to keep it tuned, and yeah, I never had troubles with it starting at all. I didn't have troubles with it changing its tune. The air temperature, ambient barometric pressure would change, and then the ideal tune on the high end would change a little bit, but didn't take a lot of chasing. And let me tell you, some people hate these things. This is the Easy Start system. It's the second version of the Easy Start system from Traxxas. Has a battery in it. Plug that in, plug it right in with a battery, with the body on. There's a hole in the body, fits right in there, and starts the thing up. You don't need to have a glow plug igniter. You don't have any pull start. It acts kind of like a drill start, except it has the motor right on board. Now that adds extra weight. It adds a little extra complexity. It's another thing that can go wrong, but personally, as someone who's not a hardcore nitro person, who just loves rebuilding things and getting dirty and carrying tons of equipment around, this is a godsend. This is great for the type of person that this vehicle is targeted towards, which is just somebody who wants to go out, strap a couple of these onto the back of an ATV, get out there in some open country with a buddy, and just tear some stuff up way away from civilization, if you will, And if you want something that has a short course style to it, this is great, I think. I definitely recommend using better rear tires. You can, of course, get much better rear tires than the stocker ones in just the short course style. I really like, there's a couple of tread patterns from J Concepts that I really like. The choppers are my favorite right now for general all-around use, and they come in a blue compound, pretty soft, without having to change out any parts and go to a different size. That's an easy way to get more traction on this. It's still going to be two-wheel drive. You're still not going to be able to just pin the throttle no matter what on a loose surface, so you do need to drive it. But I think it's reasonable. The fact that I was able to drive it without pulling my hair out completely with the stock tires on there said a lot right from the beginning. And part of that is just from the weight balance. It has a lot of weight on the rear, puts that all-important normal force on the tires, and also the softer compound, and also a fair amount of toe in, which I believe is more than the electric ones have by default. Certainly more than the electric Rustler and Stampede. Those actually have none. I believe the Nitro Rustler did have the same amount as this. So out of the box, it's drivable. Change the rear tires, it's even more drivable. I would leave in the Easy Start system for easy starting, no hassle, no blisters. Those things can go bad, but I've seen a lot of folks use them for years, actually. It's kind of, opinions vary on that one, but personally, I like it. I like it way better than having to carry around a big, heavy bump box or doing the pull start action of shame all the time. So this did work out well for me. It worked out much, much, much better than I expected. I was expecting it to suck the big one massively and not be drivable, but it is drivable. It is fun. Again, it's not for everybody. The price, I think, is definitely high. I think that for the price, if you go up a little bit more and look at a low-C SCTE, the Nitro one, there you get four-wheel drive. Durability is probably comparable from one to the next. That one does have its issues. That one does have a tiny fuel tank. This one has a nice, generous fuel tank on it. But four-wheel drive in this sort of size and with short course tires is a huge plus. I definitely do recommend that. Going up to a four-wheel drive in the Traxxas range, you have to go to the Slayer, which is based on a Revo, which is a big old huge thick behemoth with a high center of gravity and the cantilevered shocks and all that crazy stuff. Not a big fan of that personally. I would rather have this than a Slayer. There's a lot less to go wrong with this. It's just a more pure straightforward nitro vehicle. Engine, a couple of gears, a diff, and wheels to turn. But again, the overall price of this thing is pretty expensive. You can see the current prices. Prices change, but you can see current prices by just Googling it. You can compare prices to other competitive products. I think that it is definitely priced on the high end. But for folks who want exactly this kind of vehicle, you know, simple, straightforward, looks like a short course truck. You've got other different body options that you can easily get set up for this thing. Get some tires on there and get a whole lot of fuel and go have some fun. You know, that's really what it's all about. And I'm surprised that it worked out as well as it did. So that's it. That's it for my thoughts on this vehicle. Far more positive than I expected. Still something that it's not for everybody. Some folks who want to use the throttle on the radio as an on-off button and keep it in the on position most of the time should never even look at one of these, because that's just not going to happen with this thing being geared as high as it is and having as much power as it does. And I know if you gear it down, you're just going to have access to more torque at a slower speed, and it's going to break the rears loose even more easily. But you know, for what it is, I was pretty satisfied. So on that note, I am ready to move on for this thing. I'm going to move it back to stock and sell it off privately and move on to the next thing to review. Had fun with this, had fun with the video. Happy to share my thoughts. And thank you for watching. Hope that you'll come back for more, because I certainly have a lot more stuff to test and some custom stuff to work on too. So hope I'll have a chance to talk to you again soon. Bye for now.